Now then, here's a cracking piece of grassland habitat. It's untouched. Beautiful. We need more of this. This is the eastern end of Thoresby Pit top, just above Cockglode and Rotary Woods. And this is an absolute clouting bit of rough grassland. But it's not just grass, there is a good, diverse floral variety here. Lots of nectar-rich plants, good for butterflies and bees. If only everywhere was like this. This has never been grazed, of course, with it being the side of a pit top. At least it's not been grazed yet, and I hope it never is. We're obsessed with grazing. But in the summer, this holds your typically expected species, such as Essex, small and large skipper, and there's common blues here, an array of commoner butterflies that you would expect. It's a cracking piece of habitat, tucked away at the far end of a former colliery spoil heap. As you can see, today is another glorious winter's day. You couldn't get better. There was a hard frost last night, one of the hardest we've had for several weeks. But where the ground gets the sun, that frost is long since gone, and now it's becoming increasingly warm. Although the overall ambient temperature will probably only get to about 7 or 8 degrees centigrade today, in the sun it feels far warmer than that. And the temperature is bringing out the invertebrates. As I look over this grass here, because I'm sitting quite low to the grass as it rises away from me, there's a lot of ballooning going on. Hundreds and hundreds of webs being spun by spiders looking to move further away. There must be millions on this pit top alone. Small little linephid money type spiders, all whisking themselves away. And being a pit top, there's quite a few skylarks. You might be able to hear some here. The disappointing thing about this visit to Thoresby is the thousands and thousands of yards of barbed wire fencing and fence posts. It's all being compartmented off in readiness for the great British public. Those looking for a wild experience of British wildlife. In truth, what they'll probably get now, but it's all been compartmented off, are some old English longhorn cattle that Thoresby are looking to find somewhere to graze on some grass, and some Hebridean sheep. I'm afraid it seems like Thoresby's going the way of Gedling Pit, now Gedling Country Park. Pit tops were amazing places, especially in the period after the pit had closed, often before They were landscaped and covered with topsoil and grassed over. Where they were left, created the most marvellous tundra-like habitat. Nottinghamshire was blessed with many such pit tops like that. But over the years, they've all become bastardised, basically. Far too heavily planted up with tens of thousands of tree whips. Little imagination or inventiveness showed by the planners. Pit tops lost that wild character. And the wild character of our former pit tops attracted birds from a tundra-like habitat. This place has had snow bunting in the last 2 winters. I dare say tucked away on here now is a snow bunting. Although a lot of the wilder areas have been scraped and manicured and grassed. But the expanse of this pit top, Thoresby Pit Top is a very big pit top, covers a huge area. Again, with a bit of inventiveness by the right people and imagination, also by the right people, this could have been one huge extension to the Sherwood Forest National Nature Reserve. This could have been a huge area of heathland. What a bit of conservation that would have been, because it would have effectively more than doubled Nottingshire's heathland area. It could have been fabulous wild habitat, almost like grassy moorland, and it would have attracted the birds as well. It already has good numbers of skylarks, but it would have had more. But you'd have had species, migratory species, or wintering species, like short-eared owl, rough-legged buzzard, red kite's regular over here, and common buzzards 10 a penny nowadays. But you would have certainly got birds like Richard's pipit. So many. Lapland bunting's another one. And just leaving some areas rough and sparsely vegetated. Snow buntings could have been an annual species here. The list and possibility is endless. This would make a great point for visible migration. And of course, I'm on the eastern end of the pit top, on the far end, on the western end. It's already turned up some really, really good invertebrate records. A couple of species new to Nottinghamshire in early 2021. It is beautiful. I just hope the sun isn't glistening off the top of my head too much for you. I could always supply with sunglasses if you're watching this video. There is some warmth in it. It's a shame that they've compartmented it off. Once everywhere's compartmented off, it loses that openness and wildness. I'm presuming that it'll be grazed. Everything has to be grazed. the best parts of Thoresby Pit Top ultimately will be in these outer areas, as limited as they are now. And I say that because it's the age-old problem. So when we start to muck around with things, we think we're so brilliant and we know what nature wants. We don't. But the best parts on this site, like in any site, will be the parts that aren't managed, like this area here. I just hope they leave it alone. Nature does perfectly well on its own. It doesn't need us to intervene. It's the money that's wasted. The money on fencing. I wish I'd had shares in a fencing company. By God, I wouldn't be sat here now. I'd be on some Caribbean island. We spend an absolute fortune on fencing and wooden posts. They all do it. RSPB, Wildlife Trust, this lot. Unbelievable. It didn't need none of this. You could have just scraped a few areas, yeah, landscaped it a little bit, left it, done. It's hard to imagine or think of anywhere in Nottinghamshire now that you could call wild. All the pit tops have been developed and landscaped. When they are landscaped, they lose a lot of the appeal for wildlife. Pit tops on the western borders of Nottinghamshire are often better. They have a far better floral diversity. Have a look at Sherwood Pit. I mentioned that before, or Sherwood Pit Wood as they call it. Warsop Main Pit Top. Sherwood Pit Top has the greatest floral diversity where it was left and where it was originally bare ground after they landscaped it. I know they plant all these pit tops with tens of thousands of young trees. The reason that they do that is so that the tree roots hold the soil back. We don't want another pit top disaster. There again. They're obviously not bothered about that here. That's why they're building hundreds of houses at the bottom where the pit edge used to be. Good looking one of them if the pit top ever decides to shift. But it shouldn't do because there's never been a great deal of water up here, not for a long, long time. It's a shame. As nice as it is to sit here, I can hear the rumblings of earth movers over there. It's the demise of this place and ultimately becoming a country park, which never usually means anything in terms of wildlife in Nottinghamshire. Sorry. Maybe this is the last, or marks the last, of Nottinghamshire's truly wild sites. Man-made, I know, but some fabulous habitat resulting from it. There's a funny thing, conservation. I look at it different to most people. Most people like the conservation all fluffy and nice. They like nothing negative to be said about it. But it could have done so much more in Nottinghamshire. And I've not even mentioned beavers once. Right, that's enough ranting and raving, I suppose. Back down the hill and home for a bit of snap. A last look at what was a fabulous pit top. The last untouched pit top in Nottinghamshire. Such a missed opportunity. Why can't we have had something like they have done and have created at Plesley? And then there's several former pit tops in Yorkshire which have been turned into wildlife havens. Once again, Nottinghamshire has missed out. The view from here is absolutely brilliant. It's even better from up there. You get an all-round vista of the northern half of Nottinghamshire. And if I look east from here, I can see into Lincoln, or Lincolnshire. It's a cracking spot and typical of many of our former pit tops. When left, usually on the periphery of the pit tops and the spoil heaps, this is often the habitat that you'll get. But too many pit tops are spoiled by being grazed. This one hasn't been yet. Hopefully this section will be left. Grassland can manage itself quite well, thank you, without the intervention of cattle and sheep every year. But it looks like the rest of the pit top over the hill here and elsewhere is going to go under the bovine feet. Let's hope it's not grazed too much, because grazing ultimately spoils a site. I think so. It's done too much, too frequently. Doesn't need doing every year. An area of grassland like this will have a great diversity of invertebrates. Heavily grazed areas don't. I wish we'd get rid of this obsession with grazing, that grazing is good. It is in small doses and small amounts, not too many animals. I just wish we'd leave some bits alone.